Okay, so what if I told you that a single employee could be worth more than 10 others? And no, I'm not talking about someone who's just a little faster or a little smarter. We're talking about a complete game changer, what's called a 10x employee, someone who can literally be the growth engine for your entire company. So let's dive in and break down what that really means.
But before we can really get the power of a 10x employee, we've got to talk about a problem that, well, anyone who's ever tried to hire someone knows this pain. It's this frustrating cycle that feels less like recruiting and more like a high-stakes gamble. You know the feeling, right? You put a job posting out there and bam, your inbox just explodes. 500 CVs. They're all from great schools, they've got impressive sounding job titles, and you're thinking, yes, I've struck gold. The talent is right here. But then reality hits. That star candidate you were so excited about, turns out they need their hand held for pretty much everything. And that initial excitement just fades, and you're left with the soul-crushing grind of micromanagement. It's exhausting. But hang on, what if the problem isn't the candidates? What if the problem is us and how we're looking at them? The source material for this explainer argues that we are measuring all the wrong things. There's a much, much better way to figure out what an employee is truly worth. And spoiler alert, it has almost nothing to do with what's on their CV. And that brings us to the core idea, the whole shebang, the 1x to 10x employee framework. You know, the source we're pulling from actually calls this a superpower, and honestly for good reason. If you're a leader, this is your secret to building an absolute dream team. And if you're an employee, this is your roadmap to becoming completely indispensable. So, what is this thing really? Well, think of it like this. A resume might tell you what skills a person has, but this framework tells you what they do with those skills. It's not about what you know, it's about your impact. And it all boils down to two really simple but powerful things: mindset and initiative. All right, let's start at the bottom of the scale. These are the doers. The 1X employee sees their job as a checklist. They'll do what's required, but that's about it. A 2X employee is a solid step up. They do their work well, they're competent, they're reliable. They're the backbone of a lot of companies, but they're still stuck in that task-driven world. Ah, yes, the classic line. That's not in my job description. We've all heard it, right? That is the battle cry of the 1X employee. If it's not explicitly written down for them to do, it's not going to get done. Period. Okay, now we're moving up the ladder. This is tier 2, the improvers, and this is where things start to get really exciting. A 3X employee doesn't just do the task, they look at the whole system and think, how can we make this better? And a 4X? Whoa, they're on another level. They're solving problems you didn't even know you had yet. This is where you see those first real sparks of leadership. Now we're at tier 3, the owners, and this is a massive leap. These are the people who think like founders. A 5X understands how their daily work actually affects the company's profits. A 6X is a collaborator. They're breaking down walls between different teams. And the 7X? Oh man, a 7X is a true force multiplier. They don't just do great work themselves, they make everybody around them better. And finally, we get to the top of the mountain, the game changers. These are your intrapreneurs. An 8X or 9X is constantly challenging how things are done, pushing new ideas forward. But the 10X, they're the unicorns. They aren't just working in the business, they're actively building the future of the business. We're talking about creating whole new ways to make money, even new departments, completely from scratch. I mean, just look at this chart. It says it all, doesn't it? The value of one 10X employee isn't just 10 times a 1X employee, it's exponential. Their impact creates a ripple effect that a whole team of doers just can't match. It really forces you to ask a tough question. Are we hiring just to fill seats, or are we hiring to create massive, game-changing impact? So by now you've seen the spectrum, and I'm guessing you're asking yourself, okay, where do I fit on this scale? And more importantly, how do I move up? Well, good news. This next section is for you. This is your personal playbook for climbing that ladder and becoming invaluable. All right, step 1, master your domain. Be so good at your core job that you're the first person anyone thinks of when they have a question. That gets you to 3X. Step 2, develop a fix-it mindset. Stop being the person who just points out problems, be the person who owns them and solves them. Now, to get to 5X, you've got to learn the language of business. Revenue, profit, what it costs to get a customer. And finally, to become a true leader, a 7X, you've got to be a generous expert. Share what you know, mentor people, make your whole team better.
Okay, let's flip the script. This part is for the founders, the managers, the HR leaders out there. How do you stop this cycle of hiring 1X employees and start finding those 4X, 5X, and even higher performers? This playbook is for you.
So it's time for a really honest question, one that every leader needs to ask themselves. Are you hiring for comfort or are you hiring for competence? Because there's a huge trap we all fall into. We hire people we like, people who feel familiar and won't rock the boat, instead of the person who's actually going to get the best results. And this is the deadly trade-off. You pick the likable 1X person over the challenging 4X person who might question things but will also drive incredible growth. You're sacrificing performance just to keep things comfortable and uniform. It's a quiet mistake, but it can absolutely kill a company's innovation. So what's a super practical first step you can take? Rewrite your job descriptions. Look at the difference here. The before is just a list of tasks. That attracts a box ticker. The after is about outcomes. It attracts a problem solver who wants to make a real impact. It's a subtle shift in words that attracts a totally different kind of person.
And please ditch the generic interview questions. Ask them about a time they solved a problem nobody asked them to solve. Give them a real-world assessment and see how they think on their feet. And critically, if you find a true 7X or 10X person, you have to be ready to break your own rules on salary, on location, to get them on your team. Because you're not just competing locally anymore. You're competing with the entire world. You see, when you start putting all these pieces together, when you hire for value and you build a culture that encourages that kind of ownership, you're not just filling jobs anymore. You are consciously, deliberately engineering a high-performance culture. Just take a second and imagine it. A company where your baseline hire, your worst hire, is a 3-buy. Someone who, even on their worst day, is still looking for ways to improve things. Can you imagine how fast you'd grow? Innovation wouldn't be a special project you have meetings about. It would just be how you operate. So, at the end of the day, it really all comes down to this. Your team is a mirror. It's a direct reflection of the standards you set and the value you choose to reward. So whether you're the professional trying to grow or the leader trying to build, this framework gives you a clear path forward. The only question left is, what are you building?